Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into something completely fascinating today, the Vatthūpama Sutta. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That's a 2,500-year-old discourse spoken by the Buddha. But the crazy thing is, it actually reads exactly like a highly structured, step-by-step manual for debugging our modern minds. It's basically an ancient mental operating system for the AI era. So let's just dive right in and see how this ancient code operates. Which brings us to a really provocative question. Can a 2,500-year-old metaphor about a piece of dirty cloth actually hold the ultimate key to finding peace in our hyper-connected, fast-paced, AI-driven world? I mean, think about it. We spend so much of our time today trying to optimize our external lives, right? We're constantly upgrading our phones, downloading new software, tweaking our environments, always hunting for that next technological fix to make life just a little bit smoother. But this text, it forces us to look in the exact opposite direction. It literally asks us to fundamentally re-examine the core processor itself, our own minds. And this brings us to the Buddhist foundational analogy in the text, which we can really think of as a hardware versus software dilemma. Imagine a dyer trying to dye a piece of cloth. If you start with a dirty, heavily stained cloth, and you drop that impure cloth into a beautiful, vibrant dye, say a bright green, yellow, red, or pink, what happens? Well, the result is going to be dull, muddled, and basically ruined. Why? Simply because the cloth itself was impure from the get-go. But if you take a perfectly clean cloth and dip it into that exact same dye, it absorbs the color flawlessly. You get this brilliant, vivid hue. In this analogy, the dye represents our external circumstances, and the cloth is our mind. No matter how incredible your external environment might be, if your foundational mental state is defiled, you just can't achieve a peaceful, beautiful result. So the crucial takeaway here is captured perfectly in this direct quote from the source text. When the mind is defiled, a bad destination is to be expected. When the mind is undefiled, a good destination is to be expected. It is a stark, totally unavoidable rule of cause and effect. Your internal purity completely dictates your external reality, period. You literally cannot out-engineer a defiled mind. If the base code is corrupted, well, the output will always be corrupted, leading straight to what the text calls a bad destination, or a state of suffering and conflict. Okay, so what exactly corrupts this base code? While the text actually gives us a highly specific diagnostic checklist, it outlines 16 defilements, or upakilesa. Think of these as mental viruses that infect our operating system. And honestly, looking at this list, it is wildly relevant to our modern daily lives. We see covetousness and unrighteous greed. We see ill will, anger, and hostility. I mean, just spend 5 minutes in the comments sections on social media today and you'll see exactly what I mean. The text also lists the quieter viruses, right? Things like envy, avarice, deceit, obstinacy, arrogance, and negligence. These aren't just, abstract moral failings. They are active, functional impurities that actively stain the cloth of our mind and totally block us from experiencing any real clarity. So how do we actually clear out this malware? The text provides a remarkably rigorous protocol for mental cleansing. Step 1 is simply recognition. You have to clearly see and acknowledge the specific defilement, like saying to yourself, okay, this is anger, or yep, this is envy right here. Step 2 is the active abandonment of that defilement. You literally just let it go. You spit it out. And then step 3 is where the practitioner gains unshakable faith, or total clarity in the Buddha, the Dhamma, which is the teaching itself, and the Sangha, the community of practitioners. By systematically clearing out this malware, the mind just naturally aligns with a state of profound trust and clarity. And what happens when you run this mental cleansing protocol? You trigger what I like to call a chain reaction of clarity. Notice just how sequential and mechanical this internal process is in the text. When you abandon a defilement, the immediate result is gladness, or pramajja. That gladness then naturally intensifies into joy, or piti. And when the mind is joyful, it triggers the third step, which is tranquility of the body. Now, a tranquil body allows you to experience deep, genuine happiness, or sukha. And finally, that profound happiness acts as the absolute perfect foundation for profound concentration, or samadhi. It's just a precise, step-by-step cascade. You don't have to force the concentration at all. You just clean the cloth, and this beautiful sequence naturally unfolds all on its own. Once this level of concentration and purity is achieved, you develop what the text describes as an unshakable mind. For instance, the text gives us this fascinating practical example. It states that a person with this level of mental clarity could be offered the absolute finest foods, like pure alms food of blackless rice with all sorts of numerous curries, and it would pose absolutely no danger to them whatsoever. They wouldn't become attached or greedy or corrupted by the sheer luxury of it. The Buddha actually uses two striking visual metaphors to describe this pure state. He says it's like pure gold that has been perfectly refined in a crucible, or like a piece of cloth that has been washed completely clean in crystal clear water. The external environment, no matter how enticing, simply can no longer stain the internal system. With the mind now acting as this pure, clean cloth, the practitioner is ready to install the ultimate mental algorithm, the four Brahmaviharas. These are loving-kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. But, and this is absolutely crucial, the source text insists this isn't just about sitting around thinking nice thoughts to yourself. It explicitly describes radiating these four qualities outward in all directions, up, down, across, entirely enveloping the whole world. It becomes an infinite, measureless, and totally boundless network of goodwill, completely free from any enmity or ill will. It's essentially a total systemic upgrade, shifting the mind away from a state of tight contraction and defilement into a state of infinite outward flowing peace. Now this brings us to a really pivotal turning point in the source text. After describing this whole profound psychological and spiritual protocol, the Buddha makes this definitive, incredibly powerful statement. The monk is bathed with an inner bathing. This specific phrase is so important because it sets up a direct, stark contrast between the internal psychological work we've just been unpacking and the external physical rituals that were super popular back in that day. And right on cue, a character named Sundarika Bharadvaja, who's a Brahmin, happens to be sitting nearby listening to all of this. Hearing this talk of bathing, he pipes up and asks the Buddha a question that really brings the entire discourse into sharp focus. He asks if the Buddha goes down to the Bahoka River to bathe. Why? Because as the Brahmin explains, a whole lot of people believe that bathing in this specific sacred river would literally wash away your bad karma and purify your mind. It was essentially the ultimate external quick fix. Just take a quick dip in the sacred river, and boom, all your sins are gone. Well, the Buddha's response is an absolute paradigm shift, delivered with just incredible clarity. He flat out states, "A fool may bathe in rivers forever, but will never be cleansed. The river will not purify a person who does evil deeds." He goes on to list several of these sacred rivers by name, the Bahaka, the Gaya, the Saraswati, and completely dismantles the whole idea that physical water could ever solve a spiritual or psychological problem. It's a remarkably direct warning against what we call spiritual bypassing today. You simply cannot use an external tool to fix a defiled internal operating system. No way. So then what exactly is the true bathing, according to this teaching? Well, the Buddha redefines purification entirely around internal ethical conduct. True bathing means actively speaking the truth. It means not harming any living beings. It means not taking what is not given to you. It requires having actual faith and actively working to overcome stinginess. And notice something really important here. None of these steps require a secret river or a temple or any piece of fancy external technology. They are 100% internal behavioral protocols. If you actually follow these, the text tells us, even the regular water in your own everyday cup is as sacred as the river Gaya. The immediate impact of hearing this teaching is incredibly profound. The Brahmin, Sundarika Bharadvaja, experiences a massive, life-altering realization. The text actually describes his reaction beautifully. He says the Buddha's words are like turning upright what was overturned, or lighting a lamp in the dark. He instantly takes refuge in the teaching. He ordains, leaving his entire household life behind, and through solitary, diligent practice, literally running that exact internal protocol of cleansing the mind we just went over, he achieves enlightenment, becoming an arahant. This transformation proves the ultimate efficacy of the whole system. The internal protocol absolutely works, and it leads straight to real liberation. All of this brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. The Vatthūpama Sutta leaves us with a pretty stark mirror to hold up to our own lives. Because in our modern, chaotic AI era, we are constantly being offered new sacred rivers, right? New apps, new gadgets, new escapes, all of them promising to wash away our modern stress and finally grant us peace. But the source text asks us a hard question. Are you desperately searching for peace in these external fixes? Or are you actually willing to sit down and do the rigorous internal work to purify the cloth of your own mind? Because as we've seen today, no matter how vibrant the dye of the modern world might be, it will only ever be as beautiful as the mind it touches. Take a little time to think about your own mental operating system today. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the source material. Catch you next time.